So there is a local convention that I have attended in years past called CODCON, which stands for College of DuPage Convention. This particular convention is rather unique in that I actually went to the College of DuPage. It's a local community college back before I went to Columbia, and the first couple of years that I was at Columbia, I also took summer classes at COD at the same time. And after I got published as an author, I found out that COD hosts this yearly geek convention where it focuses on gaming and anime and cosplay and just a whole lot of awesome stuff. And in years past, I have been a vendor in the Artist Alley, and the Artist Alley is separated from the dealer's room, where the Artist Alley is set up just outside of the dealer room doors. So it is two very separate spaces. So I didn't really know what it was going to be like this year because I was put in the dealer's hall. Unfortunately, it wasn't as successful as my years past in Artist Alley, and a big part of this is because of that separation setup. I've just noticed in the past with conventions that oftentimes if you have Artist Alley and you have other vendors in separate places, typically one will do better than the other, just because a lot of times when people are doing the shopping portion of their convention experience, they kind of gravitate toward one place, and then that's where they focus on what they want to look at, what they potentially want to buy, and what they actually buy. And on top of that, with the way that this particular convention was laid out, the dealer's room was also the gaming room. So a lot of people would take a few steps into the room and see that it was largely just tables with people playing tabletop games and turn around and leave. So that was pretty disappointing. I definitely learned a lesson that if I do this convention again, I'm definitely going to make sure that I get a table in Artist Alley rather than in the dealer room. But all things considered, I did make my table back, so that is a win, that I'm not out any money. I just wish I had done a little bit better. I haven't really done very many events starting off this year, and it's already April, and I don't really have a whole lot of other conventions currently planned for this year. So, it was just a little bit disappointing knowing that this was one of the big events that I have on my roster and that it didn't go exactly as I would have hoped. But on the positive side, I got to see some of my fellow creative friends and spend some time with them. And of course, conventions are so important from a branding and marketing standpoint in that you have to put yourself out there so that people can physically see you and physically see your stuff, no matter what type of creative person you are, whether you're an author or an artist or a cosplayer, whatever have you. Putting yourself out there in person really, really helps to sell whatever it is you're selling. Even if people don't necessarily buy things at the actual convention, a lot of times people will take your business cards, and either after the convention they'll check your stuff out and you'll get sales online, or even later down the road they'll see you again at another event and possibly then buy your stuff because they recognize you. Even if you don't do well at a particular convention, it's not necessarily a lost cause as long as you were able to make a lot of connections and a lot of people stopped by, talked to you, looked at your wares, and especially took your business card. A big cheat that I myself and a lot of my fellow creatives are doing is putting QR codes on our business cards that lead directly to our websites. It's just so much easier, especially because people don't like to fiddle around trying to enter in a particular website. So having that kind of QR code so they can go to it directly really takes out a lot of the middleman process and makes people a lot more likely to check out your website and potentially make a sale. Of course, I also had a lot of fun dressing up at CODCon. I always have so much fun dressing up at conventions. It's just a big opportunity for me to try out different looks as well as do some of my favorite looks, and I really went for that during this convention. The first 2 days, I went for a couple of looks that I've never done before. for, but it is also important to keep in mind the logistics of doing a convention in that day one, I do want to make sure that I have a really cute attention-grabbing outfit, but it also has to be comfortable and mobile enough that I'm able to comfortably do my booth setup, as this is a lot of physical labor with loading everything in from the car into the convention hall and then actually physically setting up the booth. So I went with a Silver Sark dress. She's one of my favorite indie designers. I have so many pieces by her, and one of the big reasons why I support her brand is because her dresses and skirts and just everything she makes is so comfortable. And so that's a big part of the reason why I picked this, is that it's an outfit that looks really great. It looks really fancy, but it is also super, super comfy. And bonus, you can throw it in the washing machine and it's totally fine. That's another thing that I really love about her designs, is that they survive the washing machine, because your girl don't have the money or the time to be bothering with dry cleaning. But for this outfit, I also tried out a new piece that I have. It's not relatively new in that I bought it a while ago with my Christmas money, but I haven't had the opportunity or the outfit yet to pair it with, and I finally discovered that it pairs perfectly with this Silver Sark dress, and it is a Disney carousel fascinator headband, and it is just so cute. It's basically like the top tent part of the carousel, and then it has a little golden carousel horses around the sides of it, and it was just so eye-catching. So many people stopped by the booth just because they were so attracted by my sparkly pink outfit, and then when they realized the hat was a carousel, they just lost their minds, which was absolutely awesome. And that's also a big branding and marketing ploy that I utilize, is that when you're this fabulous sparkly person, it makes people more likely to, one, see you. It just gives you visibility in the dealer's hall. And then two, it makes people want to approach you, to talk to you. And even though at first they're just coming over to talk to you about what you're wearing, they eventually will look at your booth and start asking about what's there. So it's kind of the bait on the hook that reels them in. And I also paired this outfit with my new pink Demonia shoes, which are basically the same as my favorite black Star Demonia shoes, except in pink. They're also super comfy and super easy to walk in, which is another really important thing with working at a convention. You want to make sure that you have comfortable footwear, because you're going to be walking around a lot for load-in and building your booth, as well as you're likely going to be on your feet a lot. Personally, in later years, I have taken to sitting a lot more at conventions rather than standing, and I know that this technically harms me with visibility as well as approachability, but due to my growing disability with my hip dysplasia and my fibromyalgia, it's just really hard on me to stand for long periods of time like that, so I just don't really do it anymore. But if people really start having an in-depth conversation with me, I will go ahead and stand up just to kind of grow that bond of contact that we're having and show them that, you know, I'm engaged in the conversation and that. But then after they leave the booth, I will sit back down again just so that it's easier on my joints, because these conventions are all day. So day one of the convention, load-in was rather late, which I found interesting. Load-in started at 3 o'clock and then the convention went until 11 p.m. However, a lot of vendors tapped out and began leaving starting at about 9 o'clock. I myself clocked out at 10 o'clock. Only a couple of vendors stayed until the 11 o'clock mark. And a big part of that is because day two of the con started at 9 a.m. And so the logistics of, you know, getting back home and getting some sleep and then having to wake up in the morning and get ready for day two, it was just going to be really dangerous for me to leave at the 11 o'clock mark. Just having that extra hour of sleep really made the difference, because the last thing you want to do is be unsafe driving and potentially get into a car accident because you're tired, as well as you want to make sure that when you're doing the big full day Saturday that that you have enough energy to get through the day, because it is really noticeable when you start to get tired. And again, people are less likely to approach you if you look really slumped over and grumpy and tired. So making sure that you get enough sleep is really important, as well as people just were not stopping by the dealer's hall or even Artist Alley once it hit about 9 o'clock. So none of us really felt bad about packing up and leaving early, because it wasn't like we were missing out on sales anyway. As you'll probably notice here with me setting up my booth, it probably seems very painstaking and fiddly, and just it takes a very, very long time. And a big part of that is because you don't necessarily know what the size of your table or your booth is going to be. You're not going to necessarily know the size of the space, what the space is going to look like, just all those logistics. And so you have to kind of roll with it. And that's why it's really important to have a really modular setup like what I have, in that you can adjust your booth setup to whatever the space may be. And then also just making sure that everything is as visible and as accessible as possible, while also still not being overwhelming, because people will suffer from analysis paralysis if you just have a really overwhelming booth. It's good to make sure that you have a really straightforward setup so that it's really easy for people to see what you're about, what your products are, the prices of your products, just all of that stuff. All of the things that you can do to make it easy to understand your booth and your products at a glance is really going to make a big difference in making a sale or not, which is a big reason why I created these laminated placards where they tell the genre and a short description of each book on them. And even though, of course, the back of the book has a description of it and tells you what the book is about, there are a lot of times people who are afraid to pick up your products. So a lot of people over the weekend did ask me permission if they were allowed to pick up the books and look at them. And so that is something to consider, is that a lot of times people won't necessarily pick up your products. So it's really good to have information handy at a glance, because they might be shy and feel uncomfortable to ask you questions or to pick up your products to investigate them further. So to have information that's easy to find at a glance will really help with getting those potential sales. And I have found that that has increased my sales in the past, not necessarily at this convention in particular, but in general in the past, that having those descriptions, especially having each genre of the book easily labeled in front of each book, really helps, because a lot of times people will kind of glance over the placards and then they will on their own find the book or books that have the genre that they enjoy, and they'll gravitate toward that. Whereas in the past, they oftentimes had to ask me which genre each book was, what they were about, and all that. And I'm sure there were plenty of people that felt uncomfortable or shy and didn't ask me those questions, and then therefore just kept walking rather than potentially making a connection or a sale. So just finding those little cheats so that you can enable your potential customers to be able to make their own decisions without necessarily having to interact with you or your booth will really make all the difference. So for day 2 of the convention, I was really excited about this particular look. It's a brand new look that I had not previously worn, and in fact, I had purchased it quite recently with my birthday money, as my birthday was at the beginning of April 6th, and this particular convention took place over the April weekend of April 14th through 16th, so it was a very short amount of time that I was able to successfully get all the pieces of this particular ensemble that I wanted. And that's a big thing that I do, is that I will sometimes buy ensembles piecemeal like that, where I will build an outfit from scratch and over time accumulate the different pieces, or I'll use existing pieces in my wardrobe and I'll add to them with new things. It all just depends on what I'm trying to go for. And for this one, I've been really interested lately in this whole idea of doing black and white ensembles. I just really like the idea of the sharp contrast. And I mean, a lot of my goth wardrobe is black and white, but that's kind of different from the really sparkly Lolita fashion and the kawaii aesthetic in general. So I really wanted to try that out. And this outfit was also really exciting for me because I've been particularly getting really into rabbit ears. So I do have a lot of cat ears to go with a lot of my cosplays and ensembles, and I also use those cat ears for some of my pony cosplays because the ears look about the same. But I recently got a couple of pairs of rabbit ears, and they're just so super cute, and so I was just really excited to put this particular ensemble together. Now the wig is actually 2 different wigs. I bought a black and white split wig, which by itself honestly makes me look like Cruella de Vil, but I added the pigtails from a second wig that I bought that was also a split black and white, but it was a traditional long curly Lolita style wig with the clip-on pigtails. And that day, because I knew it was going to be a very long day, and the convention hall also a big reason why people weren't coming in there, it was really hot. They, for whatever reason, didn't have air conditioning in the convention hall, and that day in particular was that one really weird day that we had where it was suddenly 80 degrees out of nowhere. So everybody was like baking alive, and I wanted to make sure that I had the shorter wig on because then I wouldn't have hair on the back of my neck, which just helps to keep all of the heat in if you have a long-haired wig like that. I mean, the cosplay I was wearing was a long sleeve shirt, and there was a lot going on with the cosplay, so I mean, I was hot, I was sweating, and I brought my perfume and my deodorant to help combat that. But if I could have at least one less thing contributing to me being hot, it was definitely the wig. Wigs can really contribute to your overall body heat, so that was why I made that particular choice. And honestly, I'm so glad that I made that choice because I feel like the sassy volume of the bob wig with the bangs just put that outfit over the top. I feel like it's one of my best looks that I've done in a while. I loved how everything turned out. I loved how clean my makeup turned out. I love how the wig combo turned out. I absolutely adored the bunny ears. I didn't want to take them off when I got home. I did have to take them off when I was driving in my car because they were too tall to fit in the car, and I did bump into a lot of stuff during the day with the ears on, but they were just so cute that I did not care. I also, of course, wore my favorite black Star Demonia shoes. Those are my comfiest shoes. Honestly, those are like my everyday shoes that I wear everywhere all the time. I guess they're the equivalent of like a typical person's sneakers. They're so easy. They're so comfortable. They're Velcro. I love everything about them. And they went perfectly with the ensemble. So, I mean, I do have other black shoes, but they're not as practical and comfortable as the Demonias. So that's why I wore those. This particular ensemble was not by any particular designer. It is a replica piece just because I don't have the funds to spend on a $500 outfit. So I went with a replica, which is cheaper. And even for being a replica, it was such good quality. The shirt was really comfortable. It was made of really nice material, and it was really easy to put on, and and it was really cute, and the collar, it was really crisp. The dress itself was absolutely adorable. I ended up getting an extra large in the ensemble, and a big part of that is because of Asian sizing. As a 5'8" American woman, yeah, you need to go up a few sizes if you're buying Asian style clothes, because it's just not going to fit otherwise. And the biggest worry that I had was the arms, is that I have bigger shoulders and bigger biceps, and in the past there have been long sleeve Lolita fashion items that I've bought and nearly burst the sleeves on, so I always opt for going up a bigger size. And if it's too big, I can always adjust it, that's not a problem, but if it's too small, there's nothing I can do to fix that. So it was definitely the right choice to get the extra large. It was so comfy, and I was able to use the sash that it came with. It was a separated sash, it was not sewn to the actual dress itself, so that little detail really helped with cinching the dress and making it so that it didn't look too baggy. And the shirt honestly ended up being a perfect fit, so just really good decision all around. As you'll probably notice, I have very limited footage of me driving for this convention. As well as this is new for me, I have not taken footage of me driving in the past, and a big part of that is, as a part of my birthday money, I ended up cashing in on getting a GoPro camera. This is something that I've been meaning to do for a while. Not necessarily specifically getting a GoPro camera, but I really needed a separate recording camera type device, and so that I could stop using my phone, because honestly my phone has such limited space on it that it's just not practical for getting long footage on. So having a separate recording device that's 100% dedicated just to getting footage of me at events and things like that really was something that I've been needing for a while. And I ended up going with the GoPro because of Brian using his GoPro on our trip to OSR, and I saw how easy it was to use and how modular it was, so I just felt that that was a really good choice for me. As well as the GoPro is considered an action camera, so it's more durable, and I definitely need electronic devices that are more durable because I am just an absolute klutz. And in fact, when I got out of the car Saturday morning, I had the GoPro in my lap and I forgot, and I got out of the car and it fell on the ground, and I was like, oh no, and I picked it up and it was perfectly fine because it's made for that. So yeah, definitely good choice on my part getting a GoPro, so that when I'm being a klutz and forgetting that I have expensive equipment in my lap and getting up and it falling, it's not as big of a deal. I also ended up getting the car suction cup so that I would be able to film me driving. However, as you can see, it's mostly of the sky. I couldn't really figure out how exactly you were supposed to assemble the modular driving suction cup stand. I later spent a good hour figuring it out the day after the convention, so I will have better footage of me driving to and from events in the future, so please do bear with me and my growing pains in this particular blog. I also got the harness apparatus, which is where it's kind of like a seatbelt style harness that you put on so that then you can hook up the GoPro where it's at chest level and you can like walk around with it. And I thought that that was really awesome, and that really came in handy for me doing my loadout footage. And the main reason why I didn't have load in footage for this is that I was just so flustered with FedEx actually lost my package that had my accessories, the suction cup and all of that, and I had to last minute on Friday before load-in go to Best Buy and just buy another one. And as we speak, on April 19th, my package is still lost. So yeah, thanks a lot FedEx for that. I have to wait on them to figure out what happened to it or give me a refund or something. So I was just really crunch time and didn't really have a lot of time to figure out how these accessories work with the camera. So a lot of it was just kind of hectic, and I was just doing the best I could while doing all of the intense labor and crazy energy that goes into doing a convention in general. So I promise the next vlog will be way better, because I feel like this particular convention was was kind of my trial by fire, figuring out how the GoPro works, figuring out how these accessories work. And I feel like overall, with all of the crunch time and everything considered, I did a pretty okay job. For day 3, my look was a lot more casual, and it was one of my favorite looks that I've recently really latched onto, and that is my Little for Big Game Over Diva hoodie, along with a Little for Big pink skirt, some comfy leggings, and of course my Anthony Wang sneakers. I love these. They remind me of Gundam Wing. I just love the bright colors, and I get lots of compliments on them because these shoes are just absolutely epic. They were a Christmas present, and I've just had so much fun finding any excuse to wear them. As some of y'all may have noticed, I wore this same outfit for my birthday outfit, and a big part of it is just because it's one of my favorite outfits, and I really love wearing it. I get into these rotations where I'll just have particular outfits that I'll wear at any excuse just because I really enjoy them, and I definitely think that my black and white Royal Rabbit outfit that I wore on day 2, Saturday, is really going to be in that rotation of favorite outfits that I'm going to be wearing a lot. But I do try to make sure that I balance that with doing either brand new looks or doing looks that I haven't done in a long time in order to keep everything fresh so that people don't just see me doing the same handful of outfits and cosplays at every single convention. Although there's nothing wrong with that if that's your particular branding, that there's certain cosplays or certain looks that you do every convention. I do know there are people that utilize that strategy in order to make it easy for people to recognize them, whether it's a full ensemble or full cosplay, or some people have a particular hat or a particular jacket or whatever have you, some trademark piece that everybody knows, oh yeah, that's that person, and it makes them so much more identifiable at a convention. There's no wrong way to brand yourself, to figure out what it is that you want to make unique, to make yourself more recognizable. There's just different ways to go about it. And some of you may be wondering, well, if you look different all the time, how do people recognize you? And a big part of that is actually because my outfits are always so over the top, but they always have that aspect of the glittery, sparkly, ultra kawaii, cute epicness, that all of my outfits have that in common. And that's what helps people to identify me, to know that it's me, even though a lot of times I appear completely differently. And in fact, a lot of times people will tell me that depending on how I do my makeup and what wig I wear and such, that I look like an entirely different person. And while that's not necessarily my goal or anything, but it is really fun to play dress up and just to be different every day and play with my appearance and all that. That is something that I've always enjoyed ever since I was a small child, and it's something I don't plan on stopping doing anytime soon. So yeah, day 3 was definitely a super casual for me, comfy outfit, because I knew that loadout was going to be really rough, because at this point I was so incredibly tired, because Sunday again started at 9 a.m. and the convention was set to close at 6, which again is really unusual. Most conventions close on the last day of con at about 3 o'clock. So knowing that it was going to be even longer than a typical con, I knew I was going to be really tired, so I wanted to make sure that I had a really comfy outfit on, because the first 2 days I had shapewear and a corset on under both outfits just to make sure that I looked really sleek under my dress. Whereas with the hoodie and the leggings, it gave me the freedom to not have to wear any sort of shapewear under it, because it didn't matter, because the clothing is so loose fitting, along with the skirt hides a lot. So that also helps with not feeling as tired, with not feeling as restricted, and it also gives me more mobility and just overall makes loadout a lot easier. Also, surprisingly, the Anthony Wang shoes are really comfortable. Like, for all intents and purposes, they are pretty much built like normal sneakers. They just have a lot of epicness attached to them, and then of course the bright colors. But in terms of the actual fit and comfort, they're just normal shoes. Even though they appear really crazy and epic, they are really comfy, and they actually have really good traction, which helped because unfortunately it was raining during portions of loadout. So So not wearing slippery shoes was really important to make sure that I was going to be safe, because the last thing you want to do when you're doing loadout is to slip and fall and potentially hurt yourself and possibly even drag all of your loadout gear on top of you, and you could really, really seriously injure yourself, especially because these bins that you see me packing and unpacking and lugging around are about 50 to 60 pounds each. They are completely stuffed with books, and y'all, books are heavy. So having that cart and also making sure that I'm wearing outfits that have better mobility and making sure that I'm being safe is honestly a really big behind the scenes part of me working as a convention vendor, because you definitely don't want to fall down with a bin with 50 pounds of books on top of yourself. That's just absolutely a direct visit to the hospital. Do not pass go, just all of that. Breaking down the booth is a lot easier and less time consuming than setting up the booth. And a big part of that is because you're just putting everything away. You're not doing all of the little detail fiddling with making sure everything looks nice and visibility and all of that. Basically, loadout is always the same no matter what convention I do. Everything is so modular. I have particular bins and bags that I always make sure that the same things go into, just so that it's really easy every time, that it's like, oh, I know these things go in the red bag. I know these things go in the black bag. I know these things go in this bin. I know these things go in that bin. And having some sort of standardized process for yourself for load in and load out just really makes your life a lot easier, because I do know that a lot of times people just starting out will have a very chaotic process for that, where it's they just kind of throw everything into like whatever they have on hand, and then they just kind of throw it into their car, and then they realize when they get to the event and they have to actually carry everything somehow from the car to the venue, that's when the problems start. Because a lot of times people don't take into consideration, well, how are you going to carry this stuff? And depending on where you're allowed to park and where load-in is, and then also on top of that, where the actual convention hall is, sometimes you're doing a lot of walking in between those checkpoints. And if you're carrying really heavy objects or really big objects, that can be really difficult and exhausting, and honestly give yourself more opportunities for injury. So having some sort of standardized process, as well as, I can't stress this enough, I've said it about a million times in my past videos, get a cart. Having a cart just makes my life 8 billion times easier. It makes load in and load out so much easier, and it just makes it so that I don't have to worry about hurting myself with carrying heavy or large objects. Just everything goes in the cart, and it just makes everything so much smoother. So absolutely, if you are considering being a convention vendor, the first purchase you should make is buy a cart. And as you'll notice, I do make 2 different trips, which means that I leave half of my stuff behind. And some people may be wondering, aren't you concerned that people will take your things? And the honest answer is no, I'm not. Because at this point, when it's loadout time, it's really only the vendors that are there. Oftentimes at conventions, there will be a certain amount of time between when the actual dealer hall closes and when vendors can load out, which means that only vendors are in the space. There aren't general guests in the space, and it's a big part of vendor code that you just do not mess with other vendors' stuff. I mean, that's just a good way to get banned from any sort of local event, because vendors talk, and a lot of times vendors personally know the people that run the conventions, and they will also let the owners of the conventions know, hey, don't let so-and-so be a part of your convention because they're a thief. Like, people talk, it's a small world after all. So I do feel comfortable leaving my stuff in between trips in the room, especially because everything's packed up. I don't just have random stuff hanging out, as well as you'll probably notice that I have my backpack and a particular pink bag with me, and I make sure that those go in the car first, and that's because that's my valuable stuff. So I make sure that, you know, there's absolutely nothing tempting left, that I have all of my valuables and all of that on my person. I don't leave that stuff behind. And really, at the end of the day, with the things that I leave behind on my second or third trips, depending on the convention that I do, if you really, really, really want to steal a book, like, for goodness sake, y'all, of all the things to steal, if you really, really want to steal a book, like, I guess more power to you, like whatever. But yeah, it is part of the process that you want to also make sure you make the fewest trips possible, not just for the sake of not wanting to have your stuff just hanging out, but also because you want to be as quick as possible, because a lot of times conventions will have time limits on when you have to be out by. And you also want to make fewer trips because you're going to be tired. Just all of that schlepping back and forth, it makes you tired. And thankfully with this convention, as you can see, my car is really not far away, and the dealer's hall is this first room in the building, so we really don't have far to go. But there are conventions that I've done where you have to walk a really, really long way, and there's a whole lot of arduous processes with elevators and skywalks and just a whole lot of stuff going on to get from point A to point B. And the fewer times that you have to repeat that trek, the less tired you're going to be, because at this point it's like you've been on your feet the entire convention, you haven't gotten much sleep, you haven't gotten much to eat, you're exhausted, and you have to schlep all this stuff back and forth to your car. The last thing you want to do is, if you can make it in 3 trips instead of 6, absolutely make sure you can make it in 3 trips instead of 6. And even though in this footage you can see that I'm doing everything 100% on my own, there are oftentimes at conventions people in the staff that are designated that if you need help, they'll help you. And at this convention, they were really nice in that they did have staff that offered that if you needed help, that they would help you. And because this convention was small and I knew that I only had 2 trips worth of stuff, I told them that I didn't need any help, because honestly, I really didn't. Everything was so close by. I didn't have as much stuff that I had to bring to this convention, and I wanted to make sure that the people that had larger booths or people that were far more physically disabled than I were able to take advantage of that help, rather than me tying up any of the staff people that were available for that. However, with the larger conventions like WorldCon and WindyCon and stuff like that, I do make sure that Neil attends those conventions with me, because I am at the point with the bigger conventions like that where I have way more stuff and it's just way more intensive. I do need the extra help, because the possibility of me having an issue or me potentially injuring myself just goes up exponentially, and having the help just really makes sure that everything gets done more efficiently, and also helps to make sure that I stay safe. So as you probably saw with all of that, another big thing is when you're leaving the convention and packing your car up and all of that, you're kind of at the point where you're also losing your marbles, and you're just so tired and you're starting to lose your mind. And I was definitely losing my mind there, and life was just really, really rough for me, just being in the car and trying to get myself together and getting on the road and all of that jazz.
Okay, Alice?
Yep. Just hulking it.
Anything for play.
Being intersex comes with its perks.
What?
Being intersex comes with its perks.
Yeah.
Like, I lift the heavy things! I lift the heavy things!
Yeah.
Ah! Success. Okay. All right, bye. Bye. Shut up, phone. Oh my God, shut up, phone. Yeah. Okay, sure. We're gonna record the sky. It's fine. I don't know how to do this yet. I'm so tired. Okay. Ooh, wait. This goes here. This goes here. Yes, smack myself in the face with a purse. Excellent. Exactly my plan. How does life work? Friday night, and I just got paid. I deposited my cash because that's also an important thing to do as a vendor, is that you want to make sure that you have your change bank in order to make change for people who want to pay in cash. And personally, because I just don't have a lot of cash liquidity, I always make sure that I put my change bank back into my account and then I just take it out again when I need to do my next convention, because having that buffer for potential bills and stuff like that is just so much more important than for me to have a change bank sitting around that I'm not going to use for probably months at a time. So that's why I always do that immediately after a convention, where I'll just put all of the money back. But a lot of people do have dedicated change banks, and a lot of times they have those like safe boxes where they'll keep their change bank and they'll just have it there indefinitely. So it all depends on what your personal finances are, what works best for you, and honestly how big of a cash flow you see when you attend conventions. But if you're small and just starting out, I really recommend just having a temporary change bank that you have only only for the convention. That way you don't have to worry about, oh my god, I'm gonna have bills hit on Monday and all of that. Last but not least, of course, the traditional post-con mess. As you can see, my room was just an absolute nightmare, and it basically stayed like this for the rest of the night. So that following Monday is basically the day that I rolled up my sleeves and I got everything put away. I did all of my laundry and just got myself ready for the corporate work day ahead. And it was exhausting. I was still absolutely exhausted from the convention, but I'm glad to say that I did it. So I want to thank y'all so much for watching this video. If you liked it, please be sure to give it a like, and if you're new, subscribe. All right, y'all, thank you so much for watching. Take care. Bye bye.